Man, I would love to be talking today about foundations built on rock or sand and how we can apply that in our lives. But you know what? I just can't seem to get past Luke 6:46. In it, Jesus says some very convicting things. It's a short verse, but very powerful. And I think it's where we need to spend our time today. So I'm going to share that with you right now. Jesus says, "So why do you keep calling me Lord, Lord, when you don't do what I say?" Ouch. That one stings a little bit, doesn't it? We all want Jesus as our Savior to save us from our situation, to save us from our sin. But when it comes time to call Him Lord and allow Him into our lives on every level, that is where another struggle begins, doesn't it? I started thinking about what does Jesus say? I started just jotting down a little list on a piece of paper of things that came to my head. Not extensive list at all, but I'm going to go through it real quick now. So maybe you might go through it as well and just kind of do some self-analytics, if you will, and see if we can apply what Jesus is saying to our lives. The first thing I came up with was Jesus tells us to love God and love people, right? That's the greatest commandment. The first half of that, loving God, reasonably easy in the overall scope. The second part, loving people, man, that's where the struggle comes in, doesn't it? A lot of times people just get us torqued off. They rub us the wrong way and we have trouble loving them back. Yet this is what we're called to do. The next one that came to my mind is do unto others as you would have them do to you. Again, a real tough one. A lot of times we hold people to a different standard than we hold ourselves. We gladly accept the grace that we get from God and other people a lot of times each and every day, but often we're overcritical of others. The third thing Jesus says, forgive as I forgave you. Man, again, we're so good at accepting that forgiveness, accepting that grace from God. But how good are we at forgiving other people? Do we like to hold a grudge at times, or do we just let it go as Jesus commands us? Fear not, Jesus says. Many times in the Bible, even Old Testament, God is telling people, fear not, fear not. But how often do we walk around in fear of stuff going on in the world today or things in our own personal life? All the time. And that leads to the next thing that I thought of, and the final thing, which is don't be anxious about anything, but instead pray about everything. Again, how many times do we get stuck in this trap of anxiety and stuff just because we're not doing what Jesus says? Why don't we do what He says? He's telling us this for our own good, but yet it's so hard for us to trust. So this week, I just want you to think about that as I'm thinking about that and trying to make a few changes in my life based on this journey we're on and what Jesus says, to be better about doing what He says, to let Him be Lord of my life. Because every time I do, or every time we do, it always comes out better.